I'm excited for 328. On paper, it's by far the best card of the year so far. And we've gotten some sneaky fight news that I feel like has flown a little bit under the radar. And we're going to take a look at both of these cards. So the first one, UFC Baku. The UFC is heading back to Azerbaijan for what looks to be an absolutely loaded fight night. Well, not looks to be, it is a loaded fight night. We're going to take a look at the card. I'm going to give some early predictions, some early breakdowns, and then also UFC 329, which is just around the corner, which, listen, I don't know what the headliner is going to be, but we got Paddy Pimblett, Patricia Pimblett getting back in the octagon versus Benoit Saint Denis, a fight that I'm actually really looking forward to because I think there's a lot of stakes on this, which we'll break it down, discuss, and I'll give you my early prediction. And I'll also talk about, we'll take a look at the 329 card as of this moment and what I think the UFC should do to really beef it up because considering it's not that far away, it is a card that is not filled out whatsoever. So I was actually surprised looking at it how, there are just not many fights on the card right now. But listen, when you talk about UFC Baku, the UFC going back to Azerbaijan for another fight night, and this one, once again, is absolutely loaded. I mean, Rafael Fiziev versus Manuel Torres in the main event is absolutely a banger matchup. Like, that is a sick fight. And again, high stakes in the lightweight division. We'll break this fight a little bit more in depth in just a second. And then the co-main, we got Michel Pereira versus Shara Magomedov. And listen, Shara Magomedov, he's getting protected by the UFC, but I'm all for it, and I understand it. Because people are going to complain about when's Shara actually going to fight a grappler? When's he actually going to fight someone that can, cause him some concerns in the grappling department? Why would you do it? I don't even think Shara Bullet can, I think he's limited on where he can fight, right? Because of his eye. So, I feel like the UFC, given that, they're just, listen, Shara Magomedov is a fun fighter to watch. Now, I do think he's very overrated in a sense, but he is must-see TV. His striking is really good. He's very explosive, very dynamic on the feet. Just keep feeding him these kind of can-like matchups to where, to be fair, even if you give Shara a can, he's still probably just going to go tit for tat with him for the most part. But they're going to be entertaining fights. Like, Shara Magomedov is not, if you think that Shara is going to be a champion in the middleweight division, you have lost your damn mind. You've lost your mind. And the UFC knows that. That's why they continue to give him these types of matchups. And also the fact that I think because of the commissions or whatever, he's pretty limited on where he can go. So I'm not sure, like, even if he could become the champ, I'm not sure how much the UFC would want that given kind of his, limited ability there. But we will talk a little bit more about that fight in just a second. But Bruno Ferreira versus Ikram Aliskerov, that's an amazing matchup at 185 and a really important one because Ikram didn't look very good in his last fight against Jung Young Park. Right, the Iron Turtle. He was out there, was fading in that fight, and that fight was really close. And I know that Park, he's got some solid boxing. He's an OG, an old head that's been around the block. He's been in the game for a really long time. And he's a crafty, savvy kind of guy that you can't really sleep on. Ikram was getting tired in the fight. His striking did not look particularly good, and Park was starting to battle back into the fight, and Aliskerov was diving on takedowns, was really, really struggling in that fight. And he's got a lot of hype behind him, right? Because he's someone that has the skills to where outside of getting knocked out by Hamzat by that brutal uppercut prior to the UFC, and then getting thrown in there on short notice against Robert Whittaker to where he was just a deer in headlights in that fight. That was a disaster waiting to happen. He's looked pretty good. He's got a well-rounded game, and now he has to take on Bruno Ferreira, who has just been looking like an absolute monster at 185. And I know he recently got knocked out by RoboCop, and I feel like a lot of people saw RoboCop winning that fight, including myself. I was like, look, RoboCop's made more improvements from their first fight, right? Bruno did knock him out the first time, to be fair, but Bruno's kind of the same guy. Throws these big, powerful punches. He does have a solid ground game. He's got some good submissions, and I like this matchup. Because Bruno, to me, has a little bit of a suspect gas tank. I know we saw him go, hard 15 with Marvin Vettori. He was able to beat up on him, but Marvin Vettori is full-blown washed, right? So let's just be real there. But this is an action-packed fight because you have the striking of Ikram Aliskerov, which I think it's a little bit kind of hit or miss. He's very, he's got some flaws in the defense. And Bruno, he can crack, man. And if he lands clean, I definitely could see a world where he puts Aliskerov out. And if Ikram gets tired and he's trying to just grapple with Bruno, Bruno has a legit submission game. So I think that that's a great fight, and I think we could possibly see a finish there. And if I had to give an early lean, I'm kind of leaning Bruno Ferreira, to be honest. I think he's the more dangerous fighter at this point. I think that hard 15 against Marvin Vettori can help him here, having to actually battle because all of his fights were basically finishes. And then Asuam Abayev and Charles Johnson's a great fight in the flyweight division. And I think Charles Johnson can pull off the upset here. Listen, I know Asuam Abayev has really, really, really good grappling. His wrestling is outstanding. We saw him down, I think it was against Perez, where he was down. He had to get it done and, pulled out his inner Shavkat. And, Shavkat's in his corner. I feel like he was telling him, hey, man, you got to get some sort of standing guillotine or something, or get to the back, do something. And he basically, battled back in round 3, I think it was, and was able to get the job done. And listen, this is a big fight for Abayev because Charles Johnson's one of those dudes that, he wins a couple, loses 1 or 2, and then he finds a way to take out these top prospects, right? He knocked out Lonnie Kavanaugh, knocked out Joshua Van, and I think Charles Johnson's one of the best strikers in this weight class, and he's got pretty solid takedown defense. And I know that Abayev, he is decently technical on the feet, but Johnson to me is the better striker. He's faster, more powerful, and I think if Johnson can stop the takedowns and keep this fight on the feet and scramble, I think he easily can outscore Asuam Abayev. But the problem with Abayev, or with Charles Johnson, we know that he can be hit or miss. One night, he looks like a legit contender in the weight class. The next night, he looks like someone that just is like a shell of himself. So very hit or miss with Charles Johnson, coming off of a big win for himself. I think he comes in here and gets another big win against Abayev. That would be huge for Charles Johnson to really start to try to maybe push to the top of the division, because I've been saying I think he's one of the dark horses in the weight class. And then Abdul Rahman Yakhyayev, one of the best light heavyweight prospects in the UFC. And I know that I know there's slim pickings there, right? We basically got Iwo Baranuski and then Abdul Rahman. I know we got Billy Alakana. There's maybe some other names out there, but Abdul Rahman, to me, he might be the best. And I know Baranuski's been getting these first-round KOs, but listen, Abdul Rahman, incredibly well-rounded. All the dude has basically done his finished fights. The hardest part about picking his fights, so far at least, is whether he's going to knock the guy out or submit him, because he's so well-rounded. He's explosive on the feet, gets in your face, throws these big power shots. Everything is, being thrown with bad intentions. He's got good wrestling, a good submission game. And I think that, listen, Julius Walker's not the easiest matchup, and Julius Walker kind of walked into a little bit of a trap fight, his last fight against Dustin Jacoby, but I just don't rate Julius Walker that high. I mean, he seems like a great guy, but in terms of his skill set, I think he was a basketball player or something. You can tell that, he's decently athletic, but when it comes to fighting, he's very stiff on the feet, doesn't really have any power in anything that he does, and he just kind of has this smother, clinch fest type of style that I just don't think is going to work against Abdul Rahman whatsoever. You got to have, I know Brendan Ribeiro had a few moments early against Abdul, but at least Ribeiro is explosive and has some sort of power and is like this super well-rounded guy. I know that, he's not the greatest fighter in the world, but to me, he's way more dangerous than Julius Walker. So what's Walker going to do? Hold Yakhyayev up along the octagon side and, wait for 15 minutes to pass? That ain't going to happen. Abdul's a better grappler, a better striker, more explosive, more dangerous. The hardest part will be picking how you think he wins this fight, because he got the KO on DWCS, but I think all of his wins so far in the UFC are rocking somebody on the feet and then eventually subbing him. So I would lean Abdul Rahman probably first or second round sub over Julius Walker. I just don't think Julius Walker is really UFC caliber, man. And then the rest of the card I think is good. Rizvan Kuniev, Tyrell Fortune. I mean, Fortune got a sloppy win over a washed Marcin Tybura. I picked Fortune in the fight, but I was very unimpressed with Fortune. I thought that fight was really, really close. I know he landed a couple big shots here and there. Doesn't have a ton of power. His wrestling, in my opinion, is overrated. I think Rizvan Kuniev wins this fight. I'll pick Kuniev early prediction by decision. Rizvan's better than him in everything. He's a more technical striker, more well-rounded. His ground game is, maybe Fortune could take him down, but he's not going to keep him down. I mean, we saw Kuniev stuff the takedowns of Almeida, and I think I picked Kuniev in that fight against Almeida. He was a decent-sized dog, I think, because I know the people out there that love the dog or pass and all that stuff. I'm not into the betting stuff, so but I picked Kuniev to get the job done, and I know a lot of people were sleeping on him. This guy's good, man. This guy's actually pretty good. I thought he beat Curtis Blades, so I think he easily beats Tyrell Fortune. You beat Marcin Tybura. Kuniev would easily beat Tybura. And then Nursultan Ruziboev and Andre Puliev, that's a good fight. And Puliev kind of has a little bit of hype behind him right now because he was able to survive the onslaught of Ateba Gautier and was able to make it the distance, which is kind of a victory because Ateba's been knocking everybody out, which I think he's probably going to knock out Ozzy Diaz in the first round, this weekend at 328. So, listen, Puliev's a rangy kickboxer. He's actually kind of underrated in a way. And I know, he's getting rocked and dropped, so it's like we're handing him a little bit of a participation trophy, but he started to put it on Ateba, man. he started to outstrike him, started to pick him apart. He's got some good leg kicks, good range, and his frame can kind of match the big, long frame of Ruzi, man. Nursultan Ruziboev, who I've been saying, needs to be at 185. He can't be going down to 170. There's just no way with his frame that he's not compromising himself in some sort of way. So I like Ruziboev at 85. He's got a ton of power, sniper-like striking. It's a very fun matchup. Early lean, I'll say Ruziboev by decision, but I'm not counting out Pulev, man. I was very impressed with his composure in that Gauthier fight and then being able to land some good shots against a devastating power hitter. So if Gauthier couldn't pull Pulev out, I think it's going to be a little bit tough for Nursultan to do that as well, even though I think Nursultan is a little bit more of a pinpoint striker than Gauthier with the straight shots down the middle. And then Bekzit Almakhan, coming off of a loss to Alexandre Topuria, where I figured that was going to be a tough fight for Bekzit. But man, remember when he came onto the scene in the UFC? I think it was short notice, dropped Umar Nurmagomedov, and he's had some great moments. I like Bekzit Almakhan. I'm high on this guy, man. He's got crazy power, really fun striking. His ground game is decent. And this is going to be a fun one because Jean Matsumoto, whenever this guy wins, it's very, very impressive. It's a grimy type of fight where he can push you up along the octagon side, take you down, outstrike you with the leg kicks, bang you up with some boxing. But when he loses, it's also usually in very close fashion. So this guy's never in like a real one-sided type of fight that I can remember where he's just putting on a demolition or he's getting demolished. So I think it's going to be a close fight. And I think Matsumoto might have an edge in the grappling, but Bekzit is unbelievably dangerous, especially in that first round. His power is legit. He's got really nasty combinations. Early lean, I'll say Bekzit by decision. I think his power and speed early in the fight will be enough to kind of take the first 2 rounds, and then maybe Matsumoto will take the third because Jean, he'll keep coming, man. Pause. But I think that this is a fun fight. And then Daniil Danchenko, Andreas Gustafsson. Gustafsson, I feel like, is one of these fighters that he had the crazy win over Chaos Williams where he just stayed in his face, pushed him all up along the octagon side. He's like, I went full... what did he say? Something full mode, whatever he said, man. Andreas Gustafsson had a little bit of hype because you're like, how's anybody going to beat this guy? Pushing up along the octagon side, crazy gas tank, just keeps going and going and going. And then, then he ran into Renat Fakhretdinov, who should still be in the UFC. I'm not quite sure why the UFC cut him because he's a skilled fighter. And he easily destroyed Gustafsson, was able to put him away, I think, in the first round, which was crazy impressive. I think Daniil Danchenko will stop Gustafsson. Gustafsson's one of these guys where if he can't smudge you up along the octagon side, you're going to be able to break this guy. You're right. We've seen that. If you have power in your hands and you don't go away and allow him to just hold you up along the fence, you can put this guy away. And I think Daniil Danchenko reminds me a lot of Rafael Fiziev with the Muay Thai, the explosiveness, put on a great performance against Alex Morono recently, right? I think his nickname's the Great White. I was going to say the Great White. I didn't know if that was right or not, but Daniil beat him up, man. And I know that, Morono, a little bit washed, older in his career. Actually, didn't he get cut recently? I think they cut Morono recently. So, I mean, even I expected Daniil to get the finish. I liked him on The Ultimate Fighter. Thought he would get the finish. But, I mean, it was a one-sided beatdown for the most part. And I think that was good experience for him to game going 15. And then Nazim Sadikov, always must-see TV, right? Looking to bounce back after the loss to Fares Ziam. But Ziam's looking like a nightmare in this weight class. And to me, this is a layup. This is the UFC saying, Nazim, if you better get a highlight here. It's in Azerbaijan. We're feeding you a bone because Mateus Camilo, a guy that had a little bit of hype coming in, I don't think this guy's UFC caliber whatsoever. His grappling's overrated. His striking isn't very good. I think Nazim Sadikov will knock him out probably first or second round. Nazim, to me, is just literally way better everywhere. I think this is a layup for him over Camilo. Camilo was struggling with Slava Claus, and I think Nazim... And I know that Nazim and Slava kind of had their fight. If I think you ran that back, given the version of Slava that we recently saw, I think Nazim would handle. So I think Nazim knocks him out. We talk about Fiziev, Torres, man. I talked about that maybe a little longer than I wanted. That going through the card. But listen, Fiziev and Manuel Torres is a big fight for 155. And this is the fight where the UFC's been doing this on a lot of fight nights, especially the Apex card. It's kind of been their formula where they take the guy that's kind of been around for a while. They got the ranking next to their name. And they give that unranked guy that's got some momentum, they're racking up some wins, they're gaining some hype, they've put on some impressive performances, and they're like, here is your chance. main event, whether it's in the Apex or a fight night, not every fight night, like we had JDM versus Protest, we get those top-ranked matchups, but look at a lot of the Apex cards, like Aljo versus Zalal, like Duncan versus Moicano, Bilal versus Bonfim coming up. Like, you see the format that the UFC's rocking with, and that's this right here. And there's people out there complaining that this is the next matchup for Fiziev, but really you shouldn't be complaining, because how many top-flight matchups did Fiziev get, right? He pulled out of the Charles Oliveira fight. He was supposed to fight Charles Oliveira. Right, he fought Gaethje twice, and I know the one was on short notice, but fought Gaethje twice. Was supposed to fight Oliveira again, which I think he would have gotten destroyed in that fight. Right, I think he had to pull out due to an injury or something. Then Gamrot stepped in. Fiziev, last time I think that was in Azerbaijan, was his last win to where we picked him. He beat Ignacio Bahamondes, was able to outscore him with the striking. This is another tough fight. And Fiziev is coming off of a knockout loss. And I think it's the first time he's been knocked out in his career. I think it's definitely the first time he was knocked out in the UFC. And listen, Mauricio Rufy, I feel like a lot of us knew he was going to win that fight because Rufy is so precise, man, and he's got crazy power. But for Rufy to put him away is wildly impressive because Fiziev is very durable. But whenever a fighter gets knocked out like that, and they're known for being durable, having this crazy Muay Thai style, the brick wall takedown defense that Fiziev brings to the table, how's he going to respond? Because Manuel Torres, we've seen some weaknesses with him is when he throws the big looping punches, right? I know Bahamondes was able to knock him out and put him away in MMA math. Well, Fiziev beat Bahamondes. It's a styles thing. Torres is one of these guys that is just a massive dude for the weight class. He's just kind of like a my player of the lightweight division. Crazy power, good speed, a solid submission game. We've seen his grappling game is pretty good, right? I think he was an underdog in his last fight against Grant Dawson, and we picked him to get the job done there. So I'm just kind of trying to remember the predictions that I've had as I'm going through the video, but I'm not trying to, yeah, man, yeah, be humble, brother. No, but seriously, Manuel Torres is a problem, and he's a guy that outside of getting knocked out by Bahamondes, he was throwing those big looping punches to where he got caught down the middle to where now we saw him be a lot more technical against Grant Dawson. But to be fair, Dawson's got a good ground game, but as a just as chinny as can be, a glass cannon, no durability really whatsoever, and he's got a solid ground game, but Torres just beat the brakes off of him, man, and Fiziev's a different matchup, and I think Fiziev is probably the most, well put together fighter that Torres has been in there with, because Fiziev can grapple. He's got some underrated grappling. Again, this is going to be 5 rounds, so 25 minutes to work with. How does Torres' gas tank hold up, as well as Fiziev? But I think that Fiziev, if he could stick and move, I think that he could actually pull off a crafty, savvy type of veteran performance in this fight. And his back's to the wall here. He's got that number 11 ranking. The UFC saying, hold your spot, man. And Torres is dangerous. So the way that I see this fight is Torres kind of blitzing him early, finding a big shot, being able to put away a vulnerable Fiziev coming off of a KO loss to Rufy, but Torres is not Rufy. He's not a sniper. Things looked a little bit more technical in the Dawson fight, but he really just throws these big winging power shots. His ground game is solid. He's got a submission game, but I don't know, man. I don't know, because while I would maybe have some worries about Torres' cardio, Fiziev has been a known guy to slow down in 5-round fights. So I know he was supposed to have a 5-rounder with Oliveira, which I didn't, that would have been an interesting fight, but I would have favored Oliveira there. But I don't know. Early lean, I kind of think Fiziev might be able to pull this one off and get some sort of late stoppage or something. I don't know. It feels like one of those situations where Torres is going to need to kind of overwhelm him early and put him away with some big power. If not, I think Fiziev can kind of chip away and outscore him, kind of like what we saw in the Bahamondes fight, but over the course of 25 minutes. Because Torres, to me, kind of banks on that big finish, and if he doesn't get it, you can find a way to get after him. So early lean, I'll say Fiziev gets it done by decision. And then Shara Magomedov, Michel, Pereira, the UFC is just trying to feed Shara these fun fights. Don't give him a grappler. And I know that Michel does have a little bit of a ground game, but to me, Pereira, listen, this was a guy that had remember when Michel had all that hype? He was down at welterweight. I think he missed weight against Wonderboy, and the fight fell through. I was really looking forward to that fight. But Michel's got power. He's explosive. He's unpredictable. He's coming off of it was just a dog shit fight, to be honest, against Zachary Reese most recently. But to me, this is a fight that Shara Magomedov should win. I think that he'll go out there and either outscore Michel or be able to get him out of there, find a shot, and put him away, because Michel has no gas tank. I don't know how you're a professional fighter. You're built like him. He's in great shape, and this dude has basically 2 minutes of cardio. So I think that Shara just weathers an early maybe storm, maybe gets hit with a big shot, because we've seen, I've been saying for a while, the biggest weakness in Shara's game, other than his grappling, is absolutely his boxing defense. If you can get through that kicking range, because he's a very kick-heavy fighter. He's a kick-first type of fighter that doesn't use his hands a whole lot. Very, very kick-heavy, which is actually very fun to watch. But if you can crush the space and get into that boxing range, you can hurt him. Look what Marc-Andre Barriou was able to do. He was able to smash up the nose of Shara Magomedov. So I think Michel can put it on him early, land some shots, but eventually, Shara's going to weather the storm, chip away, outscore him to a decision, or create some sort of highlight reel knockout as Michel slows down. So I'll say Shara gets it done. Probably late second round KO is kind of where my head is at. But this is a feed Shara matchup to keep creating highlights. I kind of wonder if the UFC's ever going to give him a legit guy in the rank. I know they gave him MVP, which, he was ranked at welterweight, but that was a styles thing. You know what I mean? I wonder if they're ever going to give Shara a top guy in the weight class. That'll be kind of interesting to see, because I think Shara's fun, but I don't think he's a top fighter in the middleweight division. And then this is what UFC 329's looking like, right? Corey Sandhagen versus Mario Bautista. I love that fight. Bautista wanted the fight. Corey, another chance against Mario. Well, not another chance, but a chance to go up 2-0 over Mario. And it's very clear that I think that was back in 2019 where Corey was able to sub Mario. I'm pretty sure it was with an armbar in the very first round. And it's very clear that Mario's gotten way better since that fight. But it's also pretty clear that Corey has gotten way better since that fight. I mean, Corey's striking throughout the years has gotten, it's always been good, but it just feels more clean, more technical. Working with Trevor Whitman, his ground game has gotten a little bit craftier. And we know that Bautista, his striking, it's looking better than ever. He's got underrated power. He's more of a volume guy. He's got some solid boxing, a decent kicking game. But really, the grappling game of Mario is very impressive, right? The UFC put him in that, fight night main event, and he's against Vinny Oliveira. And, a lot of people were high on Vinny Oliveira, and I think Vinny's good, but Mario just showed levels. And that's kind of what I expected in that fight, was the ground game of Bautista's just looked so good, and the transitions and the flow that we saw from him on the deck was wildly impressive, to where I think that he might be able to match Corey there. I don't think that Corey's going to sub him this time around, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because Corey's got the rangy frame, really good footwork, had some moments against Merab, which is impressive. And, I think Corey, he's been rattling off a lot of good wins. And I think that this is a big moment for Bautista, a guy that I feel like is top 5 in this weight class. Probably I'd have to look at the rankings. I've always thought that Bautista is very underrated. So early lean, though, I do think Sandhagen can edge it out by decision, given that I think the ground games will cancel out. And I think on the feet, Corey's a little bit slicker and can do a little bit more to get it done. But I think that's a really close fight. Very interesting fight. And then we got BSD Paddy. We'll talk about that in a minute. Damian Panas versus Cesar Almeida. Listen, Cesar Almeida coming over from Glory has been a big disappointment in a way, right? You see these guys come over like Izzy, Poatan, Yusri Balgaroy. Just hasn't worked out the same for Cesar Almeida. He's got some power. He's fun to watch, but he kind of hesitates. And the interesting thing here, though, is Damian Panas's ground game. It's okay, but it's really a striking. So this should be a striking battle. Striker's delight. And if you're just going to stand in front of Almeida with no takedown threat, Almeida does pretty well in those kinds of fights. So early lean, I kind of favor Almeida in this fight. And I know that Panas has some power. He moves very well. He's got some good boxing. But Cesar Almeida's got some nasty calf kicks, and he's got some devastating power in his hands. And I feel like people might count out Almeida in this fight. I think that this is a good matchup for both guys. But people might be sleeping on Almeida in that fight, man. He's got some really dangerous striking. And then Ryan Gandra, he had a little bit of hype coming off that impressive win on DWCS, getting the finish, and then fought one of the worst fighters the UFC has ever signed in Jose Medina. I still don't know why Dana signed him. I don't know if they kind of just signed him basically to be a free win for a lot of guys, but Gandra blitzed right through him in the first round, so he's got some hype. I think he runs over Zachary Reese. Zachary Reese has no defense. This is the battle of Gandra has better defense than Reese, in my opinion. Reese has some ground game. His gas tank is suspect. He's very, very hittable. I think Gandra can find a way to put him out of there. Reese is coming off of a fight against Pereira that was terrible, and he took a bunch of damage. So I favor Gandra, probably round 1 KO. And then Cody Durden, Ode Osborne, Durden's backwards to the wall, gets called up on short notice, has lost multiple fights in a row, is able to pull off a huge upset over Jafel Filio, which was very, very impressive. Very impressive. Able to out-wrestle him, out-grapple him, land some shots on the feet, put a crazy pace on him. And listen, Ode Osborne's no slouch. I know if you could take Ode down, he has some problems, but on the feet, Durden is very vulnerable. Very, 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 very vulnerable. And we've seen even the fights that Osborne loses, he really hurts guys. Really, really hurts guys. So I think in this fight, early lean, I'm kind of favoring Ode by a KO. Cody Durden is a guy that doesn't really have that durability anymore. And I know his grappling is good, but even the good grapplers that have fought Ode usually battle some sort of adversity. Like, look at Steve Erceg, right? He got rocked badly by Ode Osborne. So I feel like if Ode can land on Cody, he can put him away early. If he can't, then Durden will just kind of put him in the blender and just rinse and repeat with the takedowns, get him up out of there. So last but not least, let's talk about this card because, listen, or talk about this fight because to me, I feel like the rumors are that they probably want Conor McGregor to headline this against Max Holloway, which I think is an interesting fight. I mean, I would probably favor Max in that one because Conor's been out for so long, but Conor's a big name. Him coming back, it'll be a big deal. And it feels like for this card, they're going to need some serious, kind of headliner given where it's at. And maybe the UFC kind of half-asses this card because, you got Freedom 250 coming up. We got 328. So it'll be interesting to see how the UFC fills this out because it's very clear. I mean, what is this? 3, 4, 5 fights. So we still have probably like 7, 8 more fights that the UFC will probably add to this card. But this will probably be, even if they add Conor versus Max, this is the fight that I think a lot of eyeballs are going to be on because Paddy Pimblett is coming off of a pretty devastating loss where he got the break speed off of him by Justin Gaethje. He got destroyed in that fight. Gaethje, an old man Gaethje, and it was one of the worst versions of Gaethje that I've seen. Beat the brakes off of Paddy Pimblett. And it's a bad look for Paddy because you know why the UFC booked that interim title fight. They were not the next 2 best lightweights in the world. Right? Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan and Max Holloway, in my opinion, are all better than these guys. Now, given what we've seen from Max against, I'm not saying BSD's Oliveira, maybe BSD could work some magic against Holloway, but I still think Holloway, Arman, and Oliveira are above these guys. And obviously, Ilia Topuria, who's the champ. So, Gaethje fighting for the belt. To be fair, they put up the interim belt. He's going to fight Ilia. I don't think it goes well for Gaethje, but it's not Gaethje's fault. Took the fight, got the job done, but that was really set up for Paddy Pimblett to be able to win the interim belt, and then they could do him versus Ilia at the White House. It felt like that was the agenda, and Paddy just shit the bed. I mean, he got brutally exposed, man. We know his striking defense is terrible, but I mean, he couldn't even take Gaethje down. And I know Gaethje's got good takedown defense, but Paddy's wrestling is terrible. His jiu-jitsu game is solid. On the feet, yeah, he did have some moments against, Gaethje, which I think is encouraging because Benoit Saint Denis got no defense. No defense whatsoever. He is all offense when it comes to the striking, right? He's a southpaw, big kick to the body, big power in his hands. We saw him knock out Benny Dariush, but I mean, everyone's basically been knocking out Dariush at this point. So knocking out Dariush, it's kind of like, well, welcome to the club that we don't necessarily put a lot on it, but it was still impressive, right? Doing what he did to Prepolek. I think it was a short notice call up for Prepolek, so BSD handled business there. He was able to pull off the big upset against Mauricio Rufy, who we know how dangerous he is on the feet, so that was very impressive. So early lean in this fight, I kind of favored BSD. Right, I know that he's very, very hittable. So is Paddy. Both guys have horrible striking defense, awful striking defense. It just kind of comes down to the fact that I think BSD is more of a dog than Paddy, and I think that he has more power than Paddy. But having said that, I mean, Paddy was taking a beating against Gaethje, so actually Paddy is kind of a dog, actually, the more I think about it. Both dudes are dogs. And BSD was having a lot of success against Poirier before getting knocked out. The disaster against Renato Moicano where he got dominated, but I feel like if you run that back, I mean, Moicano looked really good against Duncan, so I don't even know. Remember that narrative running around before Moicano just beat, Duncan? People were like, well, if you run BSD versus Moicano back, Moicano would get destroyed by BSD. I know a lot of people were saying that, so I don't know about all that, but I think BSD can beat Paddy Pimblett. I think he can beat Paddy Pimblett. He hits harder. I think he's got the better wrestling, the jiu-jitsu. Maybe Paddy has some better jiu-jitsu, but I think BSD is probably a better overall grappler. He does a better job getting the fight to the floor, and he's got power in his hands. So I'll say BSD, and I know a lot of BSD's fights, he either gets a finish or gets finished. He doesn't really go to decision. So I think there's a possibility, there's a world where he could possibly rock and drop Paddy and end up subbing him. So I think that this is an even fight. I think that this is pretty even because both guys are so hittable, but if there's ever a favorable, it's not really a favorable matchup, but one that Paddy could definitely win to bounce back from the Gaethje fight, this is one that I feel like would be one that he could definitely win. And I feel like, they could have done Paddy versus, Dan Hooker. I thought that was a possibility, but I like this matchup because I think whoever wins, they could put themselves in the title discussion very soon. I still think that Arman should fight the winner of Ilia versus Gaethje. I think it'll be Ilia, so then you get Ilia versus Arman, which is a huge fight, and then the winner of this, and then you got Oliveira there. So maybe the winner here fights Charles Oliveira. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out in the lightweight division, but I think BSD is able to get this one done. So this video probably a little longer than what I wanted it to be, but we haven't had fight news in quite some time, right? Dana didn't go live for it. They just kind of announced some different sources like MMA Junkie and stuff were posted about Paddy, versus BSD, and then the UFC's page posted a couple graphics announcing Fiziev and Torres, and then, Michel, Pereira, and Shara Magomedov as the main and co-main event for the Azerbaijan UFC Baku card. So some good cards coming up. Again, we'll see how they build out 329, but I think that this Baku card's actually looking really good from top to bottom. A lot of fun matchups. So, but if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss an upload. I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you next time.